everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome once again to another Demo Thursday. And as we have said, this semester has been special because all the demos have been um, hosted by practicing teachers sharing their research and how they are using research to inform their classroom practice. And as always, I like to say, as we're recording this, it is all part of the LSLP in session series that we have on YouTube. And sometime the next couple of months, you'll be able to see this video again. So let me just take a quick moment to introduce an incredible, and again, I say that every week, but this week is particularly special that we have a very exciting young scholar in Tatiana Chiquito, someone whose career keeps growing and she keeps rising in her work. Um, Tatiana now is working on her master's in literature and already has a very impressive track record of presentations both nationally and internationally. Tatiana has already had the chance to present at ARA and rock the house, like our students always do when they go to international conferences. Um, Her work is like on the work she does in literature is all about this multiple ways of expressing and developing aesthetic appreciation for the books. So she does, in addition to some of the research she does with us at LSLP, she's also an affiliate member of the Akenarre research lab, collaborating on multiple literary events. So she combines this research in education with this research in the joy of literature, and she's very deft at it. More specifically, Tatiana has become very interested in this discussion of the idea of being a culturally responsive or culturally relevant teacher. And she's been studying that. She did it for her thesis, and she already published a book chapter where we talked about this particular issue. And she's gonna share with you today some of her experiences integrating this into her classroom. As always, this will be the last thing I'll say until we return for the Q&A. Please, everybody, if you have questions during the presentation, remember to use the chat option. Remember to also open the microphone and ask all the questions you have. So without any further ado, Tatiana, the floor is yours, and everybody just get ready to enjoy what's gonna be a very enlightening presentation.
Thank you, Raul, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm very happy to share again with Raul. This is actually my third time with Raul sharing this experience of becoming a culturally responsive language teacher. As Raul already told you, both researching on second language teacher and culturally responsive teacher and literature. Okay, and I would like also this presentation also to be more like a dialogue, because I'm going to also ask you lots of questions during the presentation and interaction, because that's what I like to do, even if virtual life right now we have this kind of interaction. Okay, so right now I'm a teacher at the Language Center at UPB for a program called SILEX, Sistema Integrado de Lenguas, Culturas y Saberes, and I started there 3 years ago, but I have been a teacher for almost 10 years, okay, in Colombia. And I'm from Colombia, but I grew up in Italy, so that's why this thing of culture and being both from here and there. So let's go to the presentation, and if this things, okay, this is what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to ask you some opening questions about culture. I'm going to show you and ask you questions about Colombia and reading Colombia in images, so interact with those images. And then we're going to talk a bit about the frameworks and the policies that we have in Colombia about second language teaching. And then to go deep into what is CRP and a quick guide on how we can implement CRP in our classrooms. Okay, so a bit of me. again. So who is Tatiana? I'm a passionate teacher. I'm an avid reader. As I told you before, I'm a world traveler. I like to create teaching materials a lot. I like to read to students, and I like to discover the world. Later you will see why this pattern is there. Okay, so let's activate your funds of knowledge about asking you these questions. And that's why I told you since the beginning that I grew up in Italy. Yes, there's a specific reason why. So I would like you to type in the chat or open your microphone and tell me, where are you from? If you're all from Medellin, if you are from other cities from Colombia, or specifically, you're not from Medellin, but from the rural areas of Medellin. Where are your parents from? Where were you raised? In what part of the country? Just Medellin, or maybe you lived part of your life abroad or not? And these questions, to what extent has traveling or not changed your perspective? Not maybe as a teacher, but as a person? What words would you use to describe culture? And what does all of these questions have to do with teaching? Okay, so take your time, like 2-3 minutes, to think of these questions and type, or open, and feel free to open your microphone to share your answers. Remember, there is no correct or incorrect answer, because these are your personal answers. So just feel free to intervene or type in the chat. Let me see who is in here. Okay, participants. Because I read some names, okay? And I'm particularly curious about one. And I don't know if it's a nickname or something. Okay, hi, Juliana, welcome. Juliana from Medellin. Okay, thank you, Juliana, welcome. So, Juliana, you have been always from Medellin and all your family? Okay, Ilanit says, hello, I was born and raised in Medellin. My mom is from Cali and my dad is from Bogota. Okay. Luisa says, hello, I'm from Itagüí and I was raised here. Okay. Luisa, I think you're the same Luisa maybe that I taught you in third last semester, yes. Probably. Ah, yes.
Hello.
Hi, Luisa. Glad to see you.
Me too.
Okay, let me see who else is in here. What about, okay, Angela. Angela says, hello, I'm from Medellin and all my family is from Medellin. Jensen Fur from Itagüí and raised there, but not the same neighborhood. Okay, Jensen, can you tell us how that maybe changing of neighborhood changed maybe something of you as your perspective, friends? Okay, we have Juan Andres from Medellin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I was born in Itagüí, but when I was a child, I lived in a neighborhood called El Guayabo. Okay. So I was living there because my family, my dad's family lived there. So I had there all my cousins and parts of my family. But after some years, maybe when I was like 5 years old, I have to move from it because we hadn't traveled, and I had to live in other neighborhoods in different houses because we didn't have a house or we didn't own a house in that time. But actually, but currently I'm living in a neighborhood, and it's so different because you can notice how people, I don't know, express all the things they want, how people study, for example, in schools, because it's different. And it's also different because you don't have your family here, so you have like another friends and people. In fact, I think people dress differently. I don't know. I think there are a lot of differences, not only in the like because of your family, but also because of the circumstances, your neighbors, and everybody. In fact, a lot of, and I will explain to you all the differences because
Don't
I think
worry.
that there's, I don't know, a lot of them.
A lot of differences, yes. You can tell that just crossing the street in some places, specifically here in Medellin, we have lots of differences. Imagine if just crossing the street, or not, okay, not just the street, but walking 2 or 3 blocks can change your perspective, not only visually. So imagine how would it be to change city. For example, here there was somebody who told me that I was born I was raised, Angela, here, Juliana says, my parents are from Granada, but we all live here in Medellin, right? And another one is Isabela that says, I'm from Caldas, my mother is from Ibagué, my dad is from Caldas too, and Sergio is from Rio Negro. So thinking that change of also the latitude, okay, and being raised in a cold place. Valentina was born and raised in Medellin. Your dad is from Tolima and your mom is from Medellin. And Stefania, hi, Stefania, from Montelíbano. And you were raised here, and I was raised here, and all my family too. Okay, good. So keep these questions in mind, specifically where your parents are from, okay? And where were you raised? I mean, not where were you raised, sorry, but how that changing of cities can change our perspective. Okay, now I would like you to think, in what words would you use to describe culture? Can we type here some words, or you can open your microphone and you can tell me, in my opinion, culture is this, in my opinion, culture is that. So, sorry, I'm reading John. John says, I'm from Monteria and I live there, but I was 17 years old when I traveled to Cartagena and stayed there for 1 year. Later, I decided to move here Medellin, and your parents are from Monteria, right? Okay, good. Thank you, John. So let's talk about what words would you use to describe culture? What words?
I think that culture, well, I will use the word diversity.
Diversity.
Yeah, and
Okay.
also tradition,
Tradition.
tradition, and an ideology. Those are the
Ideologies.
three. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, John. Okay, somebody else. Interaction, Luisa says, interaction between people. Yes, interaction. What else is culture? So Raul says, so Raul is from here. He was born in Tolima, raised as an infant in Bogota. Yes, Jensen.
Also, discourses, like the
Like
discourses we can
language?
find in our society. For me, in my case, I think the culture could be like the interaction between all those discourses we can find there.
Okay, so interaction between discourses. Okay. So going back to what Raul was typing and sharing. So he was raised as an infant in Bogota and raised since I was toddler in Medellin, half Paisa, half Boyacense. in Medellin. Okay, he's a mix. And his wife is Russian. Okay, so going back to culture, we said interaction between people, discourses, traditions. What else is culture? Think in culture as a sphere, not a sphere, sorry, but as a diamond. Okay, you know the diamonds have faces, right? So each face, it has something. So what I would like to know what those some things are for you. So we said already. So Angela says, culture is a set of thoughts, agreements, ideologies, and interaction that cultivate the subject. Yes, as well. Culture is that as well, yes. Okay, let's go to this last question that we have in here. What does all these questions, what all these questions have to do with teaching? What do you think? What do you think culture, or these questions that I'm asking, where are you from and your parents and when were you raised? What do you think and why all these things are connected? What do you think they are connected?
Well, personally, I think that culture is like home for us, and for the language also, because I think that when we teach languages, we also have to think about the the different perspective that culture give us to transmit feelings, emotion, and thoughts, and also the tradition that our ancestor uh, uh, transmitted through the time. So yeah, also it's important to environment to interact with the students and to in some ways contextualize the knowledge.
Okay, good. Thank you for your comment. Yes, it's cool. I mean, it's what you're saying. It's right. I mean, teaching and culture is home, and it's what we have in our background. So Luisa is saying that teaching involves all the topics. We have to keep in mind our culture, our traditions, and also from our students, right? So let's go a bit further on reading Colombia through images. So I'm going to show you some images, okay? And I would like you to tell me what can you see in those images, okay? And starting by this question, how many names did Colombia have? Let's go back to social studies. How many names did Colombia have? Do you remember?
Like five? No, I don't remember. I'm not sure.
Five, okay.
What's
Let's name them if you remember.
La Gran Colombia, no.
Yes, Gran Colombia. What else did we have before
La Gran Colombia. La Nueva Granada.
Yes.
No.
Yes, Nueva Granada. Gran Colombia. Then,
Nueva
what else do we
Granada,
have? Virreinato de Nueva Granada. Okay. Here Juan Andrés is typing. Confederación Granadina.
Estados Unidos de Colombia.
Estados Unidos de Colombia. Yes. And República de Colombia.
República de Colombia. I
And
don't
then
know.
finally, we have República de Colombia. Good, yes. So, what do you think, or how do you think, having all these names affected one country? I mean, and especially because we were not just one country. As you can see in this image, when we were Gran Colombia, right? We had Venezuela, we had part of Guyana, and here I think they're from here. Then we had Ecuador, then we have some part of Brazil from here, right? If we see the actual map, so it was like a mixture of some countries that we have right now, right? Okay, let's move from geography and social studies to these two images. Okay, so what can you tell me? What can you see? What information can give you these two images? Let's talk before of the one on the left. What can this image on the left tell you? What information is giving you? Think, for example, in what place. I mean, we are in Colombia in both images, but think, for example, in what place. Think in the population. Think in resources. Think in kind of curriculum. What can you tell me of this image on the left? Let's start from something that is evident. Okay. Ilanit says that it could be in a rural area because of the different ages in one classroom. Yes. Yeah, that was going to be my question. So something that it's evident, it's that not all of them are the same age, right? Are they wearing a specific uniform? Talking about uniforms.
Yeah, and maybe it could be like that type of program we called Escuela Nueva.
Exactly. It might be. It might be. Okay. Let's talk about the image on the right. Let's talk about the image on the right. So what information is giving you this image on the right?
It looks like kind of private school, and they have more resources because they also using technology to have the class. And also it's a little bit like, I don't know, it calls my attention because it's like a type of an image, or I don't know how to say it, like a type of say, my God, I don't remember the word. The Virgin on the wall.
The statue?
It's
the
like
symbol.
more religious, yeah. So and everybody has almost the same age, and everybody, not all of them are girls. So
all of them are girls.
It's just, I don't know.
So it might be a private school, only girls. Okay, so one gender. They have a smart board, okay, or just a projector. I don't know if it's a smart board. It is probably yes. Okay, what other information? Let's go beyond that. Let's go beyond that. Let's talk about something that in Colombia we called social status. Are they the same in your opinion? About social status, okay? According to what you see. Remember that there is no yes or no question. I mean, there is no correct or wrong answer. We're just reading images. So let's see, for example, I don't know if I can ask directly. Let's see, Juliana. Juliana, can you tell me what else can you see besides that this might be a rural area and this is a private school? They have technology, and in here they have these shelves in the back and 1, 2 tables to share.
I think that in Colombia we have different contexts,
Mm-hmm.
and that's also our culture. So we have in a rural area people that have to share the studies. Maybe some kids have to teach. I'm sorry, other kids, and in this other image we have all the resources. We have a teacher. We have I don't know, a uniform, what you say before, and the conditions of people also, I don't know, also allows them what kind of education they can access. I don't know if it is possible.
Yes, yes, of course, indeed, yes, you're correct. I mean, you're right, not correct, but right, you're right. Because we have, of course, in Colombia, as you said, different contexts. So we have different access to education in Colombia. We have public schools and private schools. So based on what you said and about these two images, which one it's more likely to be the public school?
The first one, the rural, or this
The one on the left, the one on the left.
The left.
Okay, yeah, good. And this one looks like more likely to be a private school. Okay.
Yes,
So,
also,
yes.
I'm sorry. No,
don't worry, tell me.
no, also what say, I don't know who said, I think that, yes. I don't know, I don't remember who said, but the religious, I don't know, ideology it also allows us to understand that it's a private school because they are spreading, I don't know, the Catholic Church, and the other one, they have like I don't know how to say laico.
I forgot the word actually for that. I don't know, Raul, if you can have.
The word is secular.
Secular, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raul. Okay, guys, let's continue with these other two images. Let's talk about where these festivals are from, if you know, or what other information are these two images giving you? In what city, for example, in what cities are we?
The right is Barranquilla.
We know that it's Barranquilla, right? And the one on the left? What do you imagine? What kind of dance is that? Probably pasto, yes, probably. Is this Colombian culture? Can we say that this is Colombian culture, both of them?
Yes, I think so.
Yes, yes, you can say it out loud. Yes, that's Colombian culture. Let's talk about this other image. What information is giving you these two images?
Like indigenous culture.
Indigenous people from where? Do you know? La Guajira, says Estefania. Yes, so we are in La Guajira. So we're in the northern part of our country, and we are talking about these beautiful culture that's Waju indigenous tribe, okay? And this is also Colombia. So we can see that in these 6 images that you just saw, we're talking about our context and the diversity. I remember right now, if it was Jensen or John, somebody said the diversity that we have in our country. And yes, indeed, we have a lot of diversity. So talking about what is culture, we have this concept that it's like the tip of the iceberg. We said most of the time that culture is literature, it's dress, it's popular music, it's games, drama, and this is a primarily awareness that we have. However, what we do not mostly pay attention is that we culture is also what we think of what? Of symbols, our conception of work, our conception of family, our conception of friendship, for example. Or in my case, for example, talking that I'm half Italian, our talking with gestures with our hands, right? And our body language, okay? Every culture has their body language, and that diversity also can get you into trouble a lot, specifically with Arabic culture. Some patterns of language also, something that cannot be translated. So language, it's culture, but it's not just language, it's the whole set of language. It's what the context, words, the meaning of the words, the context of where those words are used. So everything is culture. So why is culture important in second language education for you? Okay, we already said what is culture. So culture is basically everything, but why it's important culture in second language education for you?
I think it's really important because if we want to teach a language, we need to pay attention to all these courses that language already has. For example, the way they see the world. I remember something I learned in my first semester, and I don't know if that was something really important and something really interesting to know. And it's like, for example, in English, when you want to say that you missed the bus, you say, oh, okay, I missed the bus. But in Spanish, we say, me dejó el bus. So I don't know, but it represents a difference between the ways we see the world, because in English, so you have responsibility to miss the bus, but in Spanish, no, responsible the bus because it's just something cultural. So for me, that's really interesting, important to pay attention to, because if you want to learn a language, we need to understand the language of the people who use the language, how notions live in the world. So it's really important. It's really necessary for us as teachers of this language, being more specific of English, but in, I don't know, whatever language you can teach, we need to pay attention to the culture, because that's going to give us like a type of a horizon to go and to try to.
And to try to, I think I lost you, but yes,
Okay.
that's yes, what you said, it's correct, and you're right. Culture in second language education, it's very important for many reasons. Okay, we're going to see through the whole presentation why for us, for second language teachers, and especially for you that you are learning to be teachers, and maybe some of you already have the experience of teaching somewhere, or just doing private teaching, private classes, that's teaching as well. So you're going to see later, okay, what I would like you to be focusing on. So going then into deep, what Colombian education policy says about culture and the definition of culture that we have. Okay, so do you know what Colombian educational policy says about English teaching and culture in Colombia? Do you know? And do you know how many Colombian educational policies do we have in Colombia? Don't worry, you can tell me, I have no idea. You can tell me no, okay? It's not mandatory that if you are studying to be teachers, you have to know that we have a specific number of Colombian educational policies. Okay, no idea, no idea. Okay, don't worry. Look, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 Colombian educational policies. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them talk about second language education. But guess what? Some of them talking about the curricular guidelines, it was our first specific Colombian policy. The perception that we had, it was that English was the fundamental language, even though we had French as well in there. However, in 2006, the foreign language standards defines English in Colombia as a foreign language and not as a second language, because something that we have to be very aware of is that difference between foreign language and second language, okay? That Raul can give you more that specific definition about that foreign and second. And the suggested English curriculum that we have, the basic learning rights, basically, it says that they are supposed to be the essential tool for ensuring quality and equity in education for all children in Colombia, because of what you said. We have a different context, we have different social status, and structured coherently with the curricular guidelines, in which we do not have the perception of what was the main language and the basic standards of competencies that are here in the foreign language standards. Okay, so what else do we have? Each one of the documents says something specific about English teaching in Colombia, but it's not stipulated which one. Okay, it doesn't say, no, not all of them says, as I was saying, as a second language, foreign language, if it's a private school, or in from what grade, because actually the government says that we should teach English from 6th grade, but many students receive English from 1st grade or even from preschool, okay? So that's one of the things that we have to be aware of as teachers. Okay, we're in a country where we have English because our government said so. Is it true? Our Colombian policies, educational policies, says that we have to teach English. Let's keep that question in mind. Okay, so in light of bilingual education, Spanish is also remarked as second language and English as an additional language. Why? Because we have, as you saw before, we have indigenous population in over our all territory, okay? So we have to take into account that keeping as their school basis, the indigenous population, their language and their dialect need to be respected, they need to learn also those ones. So Spanish becomes their second language and English their additional language, okay? So that's another reason that where we have to keep our eye on, specifically when we talk about prueba saber, saber pro, and all these things where English is one of the topics that is assessed and it's given a mark, okay? So going to what is bilingualism, because what is bilingualism? Because many times we said, yeah, yes, because Colombia wants to become a bilingual country. Yes, Colombia, but bilingualism, actually, if we talk about the specific definition of what bilingualism is the ability to use 2 languages, but it doesn't say that it has to be Spanish and English. It can be Spanish and an indigenous dialect. It can be Spanish and sign language. It can be Spanish and Braille, okay? The one, I don't know how to describe it, the one with the dots on a paper, okay? How do you say that? Yeah. So, defining bilingualism in Colombia, not only in Colombia, it's problematic because individuals with varying bilingual characteristics may be classified as bilinguals, but the definition can vary depending on range of minimal proficiency in 2 languages, okay? So in the advanced level of what we can talk and not, okay? And allows the speaker to function and appears as a non-native or native of 2 languages. So that's another thing that we have to point and to be aware of, that every time that we talk about a second language, it can be any language actually, not just English, not just French, not just German, not Italian, not even Italian, I mean, okay? It can be anything. So, again, the definition about culture, if now, after all what you've heard, what definition would you give to culture right now, after hearing about the iceberg of culture, after hearing about bilingualism, after hearing about that every country has their own context. So let's write our own definition of culture. So culture is, let's give the dictionary definition, our own methods and approach class definition about culture. As well, you can open your microphones. So let's see. I don't know. Natalia, are you there? I'm just looking at people here in the participants.
Yes, but let me think a little bit.
Yeah, no worry.
Thank you.
Let's think. What is our own definition of culture?
Okay,
Yes,
I'm not sure because culture, yes, me. Okay, no, I think that culture is um, the assumptions, traditions, philosophies, ideologies, and discourses existing in a specific society, depending of its context, territory, and time. And this culture and these all these are alive, it's an active process. So it's like link, or I don't know how to say that, but it's linked to the change, or is under change.
Yes, it's like a living thing.
It's, I don't know, it's just hard to say it because
Yes,
there are a lot of things there.
Yeah, there are many things. So, for example, Sergio is saying, culture is the social behavior that constructs our identity. Yes, culture, it's like a living thing. It's like having a plant that you know that its name is culture, and that when it grows, depending, for example, on many aspects, heat, sun, the soil, what you put into the soil, it can change color. For example, there are some flowers right now. I don't remember the name of those flowers, but I remember that my grandma loved those flowers. And growing up, I read in a paper of something, in a story, I don't remember which one, that depending on what vitamin or something or mineral something you add into the soil, flowers change color. So that's culture. So Natalia says, maybe culture is all the information and skills we have. Yes, as well. Yes, it's all everything, as we said before. Culture is everything, and culture is a living thing. So going here, Juliana says, culture is tradition, beliefs, thoughts, and behaviors that describes our different realities and context. Yes, as well. Yes, all of them. So going here, we have the two main definitions of culture that given. The first one was given by Taylor. Is that complex whole, so the plant in my example, or that living thing, which includes knowledge, beliefs, arts, moral laws, customs, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by humans as members of society, because that's one of the things that we have to remember. Even though in this virtual time we're still human that need that contact and interaction one another, because we are social animals. Yes. And this anthropologist Clifford Geertz in 1973 said that culture is an historically transmitted pattern of meanings embodied in symbols, a system of inherited conceptions expressed in symbolic forms by means of which men communicate and perpetuate and develop their knowledge about their attitudes towards life. Basically what you said, and we just simplified. Then we have a definition by Geneva Gay in 2010. Explained culture is a point of reference, so it's something from where we start, okay? It's a dynamic system, so as you said before, it's something that changes, that modifies, and it can be also hybrated with other cultures, and it's a factor in how we behave and think, and an influence in our teaching and learning. And this is where I would like you to be focusing from here on your attention, because culture is what gives us that, as a teachers, that idea of many times, because that student is lazy, that student doesn't want to do anything because he does not understand, of those sentences that you hear from teachers, right? So that's one of the things that, for example, in our Colombian culture, when we have, yes, that student has a diagnosis of hyperactive something, or that student has, and many times it's not even that. It's because of his context in his house. And right now that we are in our virtual classes, we can see even more that, and it's more evident that, right? So if I say culturally responsive or relevant pedagogy, what comes to your mind if I say that? Again, you can tell me, no idea, or it comes to my mind that culturally responsive or relevant pedagogy is, if we have talked about culture, what is it for you? If you hear, if you read a paper, or you just zap on internet and you hear culturally responsive or relevant pedagogy, what comes to your mind? Let me see somebody who hasn't spoken yet. I don't know, Camila, for example. Does it ring any bell?
For both, or just,
Which one? Whatever you want.
well, I think that culturally responsive, it's like a really broad concept. It could be a very, because as you already show us, and as we have been talking, culture is very, it's a very broad concept. So maybe it's like be conscious about things that are related with culture. That will be like culturally responsive, and relevant pedagogy could be like also related with maybe reflection about the education and the way we teach, and maybe some methods or materials, or maybe not necessarily in an academic way strictly, but in like the interactions with all the educational community.
Okay, perfect. Okay, somebody else? Somebody else wants to add something? Okay, I'm going to show you one of the, now that Camila was talking about materials, I would like to show you, wait, I got lost here. I want to share with you something. I'm going to, again, to show you something, and you are going to tell me what kind of weather that you usually see in English books is missing from this wheel. Okay, this is actually a teaching tool that I use with my preschoolers, and not only with preschoolers, but anyways. Okay, there you have. So you have sunny, windy, cloudy, rainy, and stormy. Which one is missing from the one that you usually see in English books?
It could be like when it's snowing. No.
Exactly, snowy, it's missing. Do you can guess why?
Because mostly of the textbooks that some teachers use and that we as students also use in the classroom is because they are designed from US and UK like models, the frameworks. So
Exactly. So in here it's missing basically because in Colombia it doesn't snow. I mean, not in the city that we know, right? Maybe we have some kind of other weather, but not snow, right? And we have snow in the mountains in, well, actually we have, but actually we it's something that it's, I mean, going back to that question of, okay, me as a teacher, what kind of materials can I use and I can create for my students? Why should I use a word in my everyday, because that's a tool that I use every day to my students to practice. Okay, today is this kind of weather. Today the weather in my house is like this, it's like that. Okay, but why should I always be focusing asking, okay, is today snowing? I mean, why? Then, okay, so culturally responsive or relevant pedagogy is a pedagogy that acknowledges, responds, and celebrates cultural aspects in students from all cultures and backgrounds. It uses cultural heritage and experiences as resources to help teachers serve students' needs. This is what culturally responsive or culturally relevant pedagogy is. Okay, it's something that we as teachers we need to be aware of all the time. We need to acknowledge and celebrate all cultural aspects. But you can tell me, yes, Tatiana, but we are in Colombia. Colombia is just one culture. Yes, do we have just one culture? Imagine public school. A public school in any classroom, from first grade or even from preschool till 11th grade. How many students do we have on average in a classroom, in a public school? 30 something, 40 something, right? 30 something, 40 something, right? So imagine that those students come from different places of the city. Some students are from Itagüí. Some students are from Envigado. Some students are from Medellín, but from Medellín from, I don't know, let's say El Poblado. And some students are from, I don't know, Manrique. What can you tell me? What would happen in a classroom of students from Manrique and Laureles, for example? I mean, teenagers. I'm talking about teenagers. What would happen between them, between the relationship that they might create? Would they mix? Would they be friends? Remember, there is no correct or incorrect answer. We have just more likely yes or more likely not. So their culture, the culture that people that I don't remember who said the wait, John, maybe it was John, the one from Itagüí. Wait, Jensen was from Italy, and he was telling us, yes, I moved from one neighborhood to one another, and I can see the difference how they dress and how they speak, right? That is what goes to your classroom, to our classrooms. We have people, we have students that have different backgrounds. So going back to the question of where your parents were from, or where were you raised, because that is affecting you as a person, affecting you in a good thing. I mean, in a good way, because of course, that creates your identity, that creates who you are and how do you relate with the others, how do you socialize with the others. How would you think if your parents would tell you you cannot talk with that kind of people because they are not from our same social status? And believe me, there are still parents in Colombia that still say to their students, to their kids, don't talk with them. Or even, let's go to our context in the university. You cannot study that profession because that is not from our family. Mm? So that's the same. It has to be, it is related. This pedagogy, culturally responsive and relevant pedagogy, is a tool for us as teachers to be aware and to better guide our students in their future. And we have many activities that we can use in our classroom. These are some examples, okay? So we can have inclusion activities. Did you see this movie? I guess it's Freedom Writers. This movie in which Hillary, what's her last name?
Yes. I don't remember the last name, but I watched the movie.
Yes, the one that exercise that what she did. She pasted this. She used a tape and she divided the classroom, and then she started asking just some questions and go next to that tape if this happened to you. You remember that scene of the movie?
Yes, I mean there was like a I don't know how to say, like a social division between the among the students of their class of her class. So what she tried to do is like they are not so different as they thought. So
Exactly. So that teacher that in that movie, she was taking into account. Oh, sorry again. She was taking into account what students cultural heritage, because in that movie, in that specific exercise, you had the perfect example, because in that movie, in that classroom, sorry, she had African American, she had Chinese, she had Latin people, but not only Latin from Mexico, but also from Guatemala, I think, or from what's the other country? Another country, but many countries, okay, in just one classroom. So if that happens and that's happening all over the world. We have classrooms with mixed cultures in it. Okay, for example, when I studied in Italy, I had people from Croatia, from Russia, from Africa, from Africa, from Eritrea and Egypt. So I could see even the difference between those two parts of Africa, and also from Egypt, two different cities of Egypt. So that different kind of perspective that they have. So imagine what might happen right now in our classrooms now that we have lots of students from Venezuela. Ask this question and to any of your friends. And if you have Venezuelan friends, you can ask them, okay, is arepa Colombian or Venezuelan? What would be the answer? Can you tell me? Let's start the debate. One of the
sorry.
activities is the debate. Yes, tell me.
I think I mean I was really sure before that that was from Colombia, but I think that is from Venezuela because once I was talking about, I mean, maybe it's from both and we really don't know. I mean, it's really confusing, but you always like try to defend like your country or your own culture.
Exactly what you think and what exactly that's what happens, okay? And Sebastian said there is no answer from Arepa. Yes, there is no answer. Maybe it happened when we were Gran Colombia, and so that product spread all over the territory. So that's why we have arepa all over the place, right? Then another activity that we can use is problem solving, because problem solving, it also gives you the idea of on how culture works on uh, going to a solution or to a specific solution about a problem. And then it's important to allow students to choose from different activities, okay, and different projects. For example, make impact projects or taking into account different world context, okay? Bringing to the classroom newspapers, social media, news, and everything that is happening in that specific moment gives them the idea and that awareness on where they are, what is happening around the world, what is happening, for example, between two cultures or more cultures. The different kind of assessment to foster confidence. Yes, that's another thing, because we have to take into account that not all of us are good at everything. That's also culturally responsive pedagogy. And we have to have classrooms that are judgment-free zone, because specifically in second language teaching, and specifically with the Spanish speakers, because many times you say, yes, and you heard a lot, you have an accent. But having an accent is not, it's not something that it's like a bad thing. It just demonstrates that you know more than one language, okay? And it gives the confidence to students to speak and to freely make that step of speaking in English, because many times you were going to face in the classroom that students that don't want to participate in your classroom because they are, no, teacher, no, me da pena, no, I'm not going to speak. No, I don't know how to say that. I don't know how to pronounce. I don't have a good pronunciation. No, teacher, I don't know grammar. And you're like, but don't worry, you know, and I can help you out. That's why you are there, okay? Then, sorry. So going back, it's bringing native language into the classroom. If you have people from other countries and that speak other languages, it's a very good activity to ask them, okay, can you speak other languages? Can you tell me something in your native language? If you have indigenous people, I had once, and it was a very nice experience. He was a sixth grader, and he was very, very shy. And I remember that I asked him once, can you tell me something in your native language? And he was like, but in Spanish? No, tell me something in your indigenous dialect. And everybody started looking at him like, wow, is it true that you know a different dialect? So it also empowers the others and builds that bridge for communication. And it's very important that we have to understand our history and culture, our own as Colombians, to know and to, of course, understand others, of course. And we have to involve family a lot, because many times there are many things that students, or many activities, for example, that you can say that students do not know. For example, that topic, family. Go home, sorry, don't go home. Open your notebook and draw your family tree. How many times have you done that? How many times? And do you, who had you ask you for your granddad or grandmother name? To your parents, or to your, or to your grandmas or grandpas, yes? And it's important that we bring community into the classroom and we create that community. Because as I was telling you before, we are social animals. Human beings are social animals, and we need to communicate in order to bond, in order to be a hybrid. something like that. Yes. So that's culturally responsive teaching. And it doesn't have only to do with language. It has to be with everything. Yes, even with Spanish, with chemistry, with social studies, with everything. So it's a bit of a mixture. So it's very important that you get to know your students and ask, and that you allow your students to ask questions to you, even personal questions. Okay, it's up to you whether how to respond. Yes, and adapt your teaching styles to the different kind of context that you have. Of course, you're not going to I don't know, let's see a topic, very common topic, food. Okay, food. But the context, it's a very poor neighborhood. Is it a good topic for them? Maybe I would put that question into your mind. Maybe you can approach it from a different perspective, not just, okay, let's cook something. Maybe they do not have even the money for buying their breakfast. So that's what cultural responsive pedagogy is also about. Okay. And so it's nice sometimes to bring guest speakers, community leaders, priests, other teachers, or also parents who wants to share their perspectives on life or learning of everything. And it's important to have also learning stations in your classroom, if you're allowed to have different type of content for students to see the different perspectives. As I was telling you before, imagine culture as a diamond. A diamond has faces, okay? So that whole is what gives students the idea of the whole. And that whole is the world, the context, the family, the interaction, and political situations that are happening around the world. Okay. And so, as I stated in my thesis, we as or we as the teachers and you as BA students, you need to have clear connection between theory and practice during your BA program, and have teacher development sessions, because that's what gives you the panorama of what teaching is, and not just sticking to a book. Because many times you just arrive to a school and the coordinators gives you the books, and yeah, you're going to be a 6th grade teacher. This is the book, go. Okay. And many teachers fall into that mistake that book is the Bible. No, you are the teacher. You are the one who have the brain. You are the one who needs to to question even the book, okay? And you have to have clear why you want to be a second language teacher. That's very important. Why English and not another language? Why Spanish for foreigners? Yes, because that's another thing that you might think about. And create your own materials to teach Colombian culture through English, because that's one thing that we forget many times, that we have books, and books are, okay, American English, British English, British culture, American culture. But how about talking about South Africa? How about talking New Zealand? How about talking of Canada? Yes. How about talking of some of the Guyanas? I don't know, of the Caribbean island that we have, but in English, or even our Colombian culture, but in English. Okay. It's important that we develop that cultural awareness in our students and in you as pre-service teachers. Okay, you have to be critical readers of the world. That's why the first exercise of this presentation were those images, because images give you information a lot of the context, the population, political situation, and anything else, everything. Okay, so I think just to close, it's very important that you take into account three main things about all the things that I said today. It's the social cultural context of school's environment, the sociocultural reality of students and families, and the profile of teachers and your relationship with the community, okay? Besides having clear what culture is. Because all these three things together gives you the educational context, okay, of everything. And it can be different even crossing the street, okay, as we were saying at the beginning of the presentation. Okay, guys, just remember that language is not a neutral tool for communication, because who have the power to manipulate language have the power to rule the world. Okay, and basically this is it. If you have any questions or answers or just thoughts to share, I would be more than pleased to answer.
Thank you, Tatiana. As always, very insightful introduction, because I mean this is pretty much an introduction to something that is much larger than that.
The tip of the iceberg.
Oh no, it's no, that's like the really like the tip of the tip, like
The tip of the tip
of the iceberg. So it's not even, it's nowhere near. I mean, it's a good introduction. Probably there is a lot more when you start talking about culturally relevant pedagogy or culturally responsive pedagogy, and then you start going deeper into all the different avenues that begin to emerge from that. Because I mean, there is a whole avenue of options when you start talking about culturally sustaining pedagogies, and then you start talking about anti-racist and abolitionist, and then the whole notion of abolitionist teaching that people like Bettina Love are talking about these days. That it's all part, but it's actually, I mean, you just start extending it and going deeper and deeper into that. So
and specifically also when you start teaching, that you start realize the context where you are, and also the colleagues that you have. So that's where you should begin to ask you lots of questions.
Yeah. Now we still have a few minutes for class. So I wonder if there are any questions from any of you students. And remember, you can either turn your microphones on and ask a question directly, or and then Juan, who's beginning here, you asked a good question. Why do we want to be English teachers instead of another language? Now, Juan Jose, you want to elaborate what you mean by that? Or how you understand that question?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, basically, I have no idea because that was a good question. So I think I have no answer for that. I have to think.
Okay, but how can you understand? I mean, I just throw that question to you. So how would you react to that question? I mean, you enrolled in and you pay the fee for Universidad Pontificia Bolivariana in Spanish and English. Yes, Spanish and English education. But why many programs that we have in Colombia are Spanish and English, or English and Spanish, and not other languages, for example?
Maybe it's because of, I think English is the lingua franca currently. So maybe it's because of that.
And we even have to problematize what that expression means, and we have to go deeper. And I think because the question here is not necessarily, it's actually, well, not necessarily should we teach another language, and that could be that's a different question. I mean, that's a different question for a different day. The bigger question from a culturally relevant perspective is, why are we teaching English? And when you start thinking of the why we are teaching English, then you start going deeper into questions about what varieties of English we're favoring, whose English we're favoring, whose Englishes we're silencing. And right now there is a lot of discussion. I mean, I got some colleagues in the United States right now doing a lot of discussion about Black linguistic justice, for like April Baker Bird, Lamar Johnson, and a host of others. So I guess those are the two that came to my mind right now. And these questions about what varieties or what discourses, both big D and little d discourses, we are favoring, in which discourses, especially the small d discourses, individual or small group discourses, are being left out of the conversation. So that in the question, it would take, when we start thinking about the question about teaching English, we have to start from a culturally relevant perspective. We have to start problematizing the question about whose voices are making it to the classroom and whose voices are being left out of the conversation. Which
because
again,
because bringing something to the classroom is like if you were broadcasting it in a television to the whole country. Yes. So, for example, if I'm going to do a silly example. Yes, I'm going to talk about, I don't know, this pencil. Okay, it's a black pencil, but whatever. And I'm going to build a whole thing about this pencil and around this pencil, but in the classroom. So everybody at a certain point are going to be talking about this pencil, wanting this pencil instead of another. So ignoring that there are also other varieties and that you can write with many other different tools, right? It's a silly example, but it's just to make you understand that what you bring as a teacher to the classroom, students are going to believe you because you are the teacher. And they're going to say, teacher is the Bible. So teacher knows. But the first thing that you need to teach your students is, no, you have to question even me. Everything.
absolutely right, absolutely. Yeah, and that is essential at the core of this. It's the whole question of, let's begin to raise questions about what practices are happening in class. That if we're teaching English, the first question we have to ourselves is why we're teaching. Why? I mean, I always ask the question, have we told the students why they're learning another language? Beginning with the question of why we're learning another language. What are the big implications of learning another language? And then we can start going deeper into the question of what languages we are promoting. And again, that leads to the question of what languages are being left out of the conversation. And it's not to say, oh, we shouldn't teach English. I mean, I think that's not the point, no. But if we're gonna teach English, and we're gonna do it in a culturally relevant fashion, what that means is we cannot take English for granted. Just as if you're teaching Spanish as a first, second, or foreign language, you cannot take Spanish for granted. It's that's the other the point is that you cannot take languages for granted, and you cannot take the idea that languages alone can fix everything, or that languages by default are intended to be these vehicles of coexistence and communication and harmony, when there is a lot of history that has proven that languages have been used in many other ways, that historically languages have been weaponized and monetized and even militarized, and that we cannot forget that history. But just as we look at the rich history of the evolution of languages, we also have to look at the political dimensions of languages and languaging, and how again languages can appear as instruments of humanization, but very often they can become instruments of dehumanization. And that if you're language teachers, your job and your duty and your responsibility, like societal, civic, and academic and social, it's to allow languages to be tools that humanize your students in the process and not simply perpetuate these dehumanizing practices. Some of them as simple as, oh, we have to prepare for a test, and that's the whole purpose of the class. Oh, you have to prepare because there's a test at the end of the school year, and the statistics, and we have to get some statistics about that show that you're improving. So that just always to keep in mind that in a culturally relevant environment, I mean, there are bigger discussions about the role that languages play in the construction of society, in the construction of community, in the construction of life, and that we cannot detach that from grammar, we cannot detach that from the discussion about pronunciation, that we cannot detach that from vocabulary, that we I mean that if we want to really enrich the teaching of grammar, the teaching of vocabulary, the teaching of pronunciation, and the development of speaking, listening, reading, writing, if you do not add this dimension, the content is just void of that grounded into reality.
Yes, Raul, and just to add something, as what I was telling you at the beginning, and Raul was telling you at the beginning that I'm doing my master in literature. Literature is another way of using languages, okay? It's putting into practice something. And of course, you can find lots of culturally responsive and relevant books that you can use in your classroom, okay? And also with preschoolers, you can read images with them, or with the elementary students. We can ask to see what vocabulary are we using, yes, instead of I don't know, a sentence. How can we understand how to use a book? Yes, not only to learn. Ah, okay, yes, the sun. In Spanish we say sorry. In English we say sol, sun. Okay, but what image do we have of the sun in that book? That's another thing. Yes, and we can question what we have in that printing part. Yes, and also there is a very nice book, Así Vivo Yo, Pilar Lozano, I think it's the author. And it's a wonderful book about how we can talk of other areas of Colombia, and using, of course, culture, okay? Because the title is Así Vivo Yo, so it's kids talking about their country, Colombia, but their own specific context. So we have the coast, we have San Andres, we have the Amazon, we have the inner part of the country. So we have the whole. Yeah, so that's one example that on how also you can use culturally responsive in your classrooms.
Now, are there any other questions from any of the students? Well, I mean, there's always a lot of information to digest, and students always need time to get into that. So, in the benefit of time, because I know Tatiana has other commitments today, we're gonna give an ending to this session again with my gratitude to Tatiana for her insights, for her knowledge of the content of the subject matter, that it's not just something she's studying, but something that she's embodying in her work and she's living in her practice. And once again, I think that is the way forward. The way forward and the way you should do this is everything we do in research has to become practice, and it has to become part of our teaching. And we have to make sure that our practice embodies that. And again, Tatiana's work with culturally relevant and responsive pedagogies is all about that. It's about embodying that and turning it into her teaching. So I hope you got some useful lessons. Obviously, if you have further questions, you can always reach out to Tatiana for a follow-up question for more ideas. Once again, there was a lot of good interaction during the session, so thank you for that engagement in the chat. Thank you for the engagement during the webinar. That's important. Thank you, everybody. We'll resume our classroom activities next week on Wednesday, as we have originally scheduled. Again, for people who'll be watching this eventually when we upload it to YouTube, this is all part of the LSLP in session webinar series And we always invite you to check out this webinar and all the others that we have covering different topics on language teaching, literacy, and qualitative research. And with that note, thank you very much. Once again, thank you, Tatiana.
Thank you, Rod. My pleasure all the time. Guys, thank you for your answers. Thank you for your interaction as well. Anything that you might want to write, you can write me. I'll type here in the chat my email.
Thank you, Tatiana. And once again, everybody, have a wonderful afternoon. And as I always like to say to everybody, let's stay safe, let's stay connected, and let's stay together in these trying times. Thank you, everybody. Have a very good afternoon.